everyone. Welcome back to the Self-Made CEO podcast. I don't know why I'm yelling, but I am your host, Adrienne Finch. And today I'm here with a very special guest, my best friend, Hayley Paul. She is feeling a little bit raw right now. She just quit her job after 4 years. We're going to talk all about that. We're also going to talk about why you should just do what you got to do in life, despite what people expect you to do, what people want you to do. We're going to get all into that right now, right here, right now. Stay tuned. My name is Adrienne Finch, and I believe wholeheartedly that anyone from any background can create the success and happiness that they want. With my proven productivity hacks, business tactics, and a little mindset coaching, this podcast will unlock your greatest potential and transform you into the CEO of your own life, business, happiness, and success. So what are you waiting for? This is the Self-Made CEO podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm so happy. We're in the studio right now, and I am with one of my personal favorite guests in the whole world. I say that every week. I'm sorry. I hope no one else is taking offense to that. But today I have Hayley Paul, my best friend since 2011, in the studio, and I'm pumped. I basically dragged her out of the house today and said, "You are being on my podcast."
It's great to be here. Basically 2 hours ago, was it? I get the text from you saying, "Hey, you want to be on my podcast today?" Sure, I guess.
Yeah. No, okay, because so I was thinking about it. Hayley, and we're going to get all into all of this, but Hayley literally just quit her job of 4 years. And I feel like it's been a long time coming. I think she's wanted to quit for a while now.
I have,
and
yeah.
She finally pulled the trigger, and I had this spur of the moment thought, you know what? I want to bring her in here. Let's talk about it while it's still fresh. Part of me wanted to be a good friend and say, "Oh, it's still fresh. We don't have to talk about it." And then I was like, actually, no, we are absolutely going to talk about it because this is why we're here. We're here to be real and raw and give you guys relevant experiences and knowledge and things you can learn from. And she has just gone through quite a pivotal
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah. And by raw, we mean literally 2 days raw. This was on Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, I'm still I can't even believe it's
right
real.
Now. Yeah. It's been
I'm so happy for
a
you.
whirlwind of a week for sure. But yeah, hopefully you guys can learn from some of my mistakes through the years and
you definitely can
do better next time.
Do better. You're doing great, sweetie.
Yeah.
But before we get fully diving into the episode, I just want to make a quick announcement. So it turns out you guys really, really were loving the manifesting episode we did. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend. I did an episode called Manifest Anything in 24 Hours. It was a proven process that I got from my favorite entrepreneur and podcast, James Wedmore. He hosts the Mind Your Business podcast. He outlined a really awesome, easy 9-step process to manifest anything into your life in just 24 hours. And it's honestly incredible and amazing. So I knew I was so excited for that episode, but what I didn't realize was the amount of feedback and messages I was going to receive from you guys saying, "Oh my God, I did this. It worked. It's crazy." And it just made me so happy reading all of those messages. So I want to let you guys know, I would love to do an episode in the future where it's featuring your guys' manifesting stories. So if you have a manifesting story, it doesn't matter if it's as small as you manifested a coin on the ground or a cloud in the sky, or you manifested your dream house, your dream car, your husband. I want to hear your stories. So if you guys have stories that you'd like to share on a future episode, also James Wedmore did this. I'm totally copying his idea, but I just thought it was so inspiring hearing other people talk about it. If you guys want to submit your stories, what you should do is just record a soundbite. Probably try to keep it to under 4 minutes ish. I mean, I'm not gonna cut it if it's longer than that, but send me a soundbite to the Self-Made CEO podcast at gmail.com. And I would love to feature you. So yes, I'm just gonna start making that announcement from here on out. Please give me your manifesting stories. If you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend. And also, before we begin, I just wanted to share with you one of the messages that I got. I got this email the other day, and honestly, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my stories where I was borderline gonna cry because I was just so happy receiving this message. But this woman wrote me, and I'm just gonna read you her message because, first of all, it's an incredible manifesting story, but it also is just so inspiring. So let me read that. She says, "Hi, Adrienne. I don't usually review or send comments on anything I consume, but I felt compelled to tell you about my experience after your episode on manifestation. I listened to the episode while getting ready for work a few days ago. I've heard of the law of attraction and manifesting before, but had never really tried it. It was always something that I wanted to believe, but was skeptical of. After listening to your episode, I decided to try the worksheet you linked. I chose to try and manifest a 25-cent coin thinking that wouldn't be that unusual to come across on the street. Well, it worked, but not in the way I expected at all. 24 hours had passed and there was no sign of this coin. I kind of gave up on it and resolved that I would try again later on. This morning, about 36 hours after completing the worksheet, I was in the kitchen at my office and pulled a mug off of the top shelf of the cupboard and heard something fall. I thought the mug was broken, but I looked down and sitting on the counter was a quarter. My jaw dropped in amazement. I write all of this to say I now truly believe in our ability to manifest anything into our lives. Thank you for having the courage to put yourself out there. I know you have made a difference in my life, and I'm sure countless others as well. Oh my God, I get chills just reading it again because holy crap, it's just, oh my God. That makes me so happy, and I'm so glad that she got to experience that. It truly is amazing when you do experience that. And I wrote her back and I told her that it wasn't her actually giving up on manifesting or on finding a coin. It was actually her letting go of the outcome. It was her saying, okay, I'm not going to think about whether I'm going to get it or not. I'm not going to put pressure on myself. I'm just letting go. And that's when it happened. And that's when you find it usually happens. So anyway, that's that. That's manifesting. And that was an awesome message. So I'm going to stop talking. Don't know why I'm still talking. We're going to get actually into this episode with Hayley. Hi, Hayley.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. That was a really incredible story, though. I mean, I would love to hear all those people's stories as well as they, come forward with them.
Yeah,
That's
no,
awesome.
I definitely want to hear, it just is so cool to hear other people talk about it because I feel like people are skeptical at first. I was. And then you hear actual stories and you're like, oh my God, okay, if this many people are talking about it, there's something real to this.
Exactly, yeah.
So anyway, all right. So like I mentioned, we're here with Hayley. She's my best friend. We went to college together. And what I just find so interesting about Hayley's story is that she always kind of just did her own thing despite what people said or despite kind of feeling any pressure or anything like that. And I just think that you've gone through an interesting journey, actually. We were talking about it in the car and she's like, well, but nothing's really happened. I'm like, but actually, yes, it has. I can't speak today, guys. Starting from going to college, picking your major, all of that, I feel like you had certain pressures to do or not do certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess taking a little step back here, we went to LMU and I started off as a political science major. I actually, and then I stayed as a political science major because at the time I thought that I was going to go to law school, do that whole track. And after I had some internships in law, I realized, this is definitely not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And so at that point, it was a little too late for me to realistically change my major. So I stuck with my major, but I pivoted into doing event planning and marketing. And my family at the time was not, my parents and my brother were very supportive of me, but my more extended family, I guess. So aunts, uncles, grandparents, all of them, cousins, they were really not happy with my decision to kind
of do something that wasn't what you were going to college for.
Exactly, yeah. And it just, marketing didn't seem as impressive to them as being a lawyer was. And especially because I live in a more expensive city, Los Angeles is definitely not the cheapest place to live. They were very concerned with, how are you going to make a living if you're not making, six figures as a lawyer? And so it kind of dealing with that questioning and listening to them say, you're so selfish for making that decision, all this stuff. But I just kind of had to do what I had to do. I wasn't happy doing law work.
Yeah.
It wasn't satisfying. It caused me a lot of anxiety being in that environment. So shifting was definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah. How did you do that? Knowing that you were getting all of that kind of backlash, how were you able to just confidently be like, no, I'm doing this. I'm doing what I need to do. Mentally, how did you get there to that point?
It was definitely difficult. I had a lot of kind of panic attack evenings where I would, kind of sit there and I'd cry it out and say, I obviously don't want to be disappointing my family. And what if they're right? What if I am making the wrong decision? What if I'm kind of digging myself into a hole or a financial pit and I'm going to regret it later, not taking on this path? Those were all definitely huge concerns for me. And at the end of the day, I actually had a conversation with my dad, and he had told me that, he had some regrets in life, not followed certain passions that he was, that he had wanted to do when he was my age.
Yeah, wasn't he in a band?
He was in a band, yes. He was in an 80s hair metal band.
Amazing.
So, yeah, if you literally imagine that Queen movie just came out. It was basically the same thing.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, he had dreams of getting more involved with that didn't really come to fruition. And so he told me, at the end of the day, you just kind of have to do what's right for you. You know yourself better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And you just have to run with that. And I really took that to heart, and I realized it kind of just hit me at once that, he was right. I need to make decisions for myself. As much as I love my family and I really care about their opinions, and I don't want to disappoint them, and all those anxieties were kind of piling on top of me. I realized I just kind of had to let go of those anxieties and kind of let it ride out.
Yeah.
And I had to make the decision that was right for my own goals.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And and it sounds like, and I know you so well, I know it's not easy to make that kind of decision. And I think for some people, naturally, they're just like, yeah, screw it, I'm going to do what I want. And it's not stressful. I think for other people, it is stressful. It's hard to be going into a potentially unstable or just risky situation, or just some uncharted territory, something that you're I didn't prepare for this, I don't know what's going to happen. It's tough to make that decision.
It definitely is. And especially for me personally, I've suffered with anxiety for a really long time, and I know that that's something that's pretty common in this day and age. A lot of people just are anxious all the time, and there's a lot of fear about making the right call and second guessing yourself, and you lie awake at night and just think oh my gosh, I talked to someone and said something weird at 3 p.m. today. Was that the right call? And you just dwell over it over and over again. That's the type of person I am. And so it's making a decision like that for your career is really tough.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I'm proud that you did. And I feel you continue to make decisions like that. And it's not easy. And I swear, especially with parental pressure too, and love everyone's parents and not telling you that your parents suck or anything like that. But I think that it's tough because sometimes I think what your dad said was so important and so great. Sometimes I think parents, it can go either way. A parent will either pressure you to do the thing that they missed out on doing and that they wish that they had done, such as be creative or be in a band or whatever, where they're I didn't make it doing this, so I want you to do it. Kind of the momager type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And my mom was more in that realm too, where she, I know that she was looking out for me. She wanted what she thought was best, but she definitely was pushing me a little bit more towards the you need money is very important in this world. You need to think more financially, how much money you're going to be making, and being a lawyer is the better track for that.
Right.
So yeah, she was definitely kind of pushing me a little more in that direction. And then, Dad was kind of saying on the side, hey, maybe you should
and at
look
the
out
end of
for
the
you
day,
if that's not what you want. Yeah.
Totally. And what I like to tell people too when they consider moving cities or trying something new is nothing's permanent. If you think about it right now, nothing is permanent. My friend wanted to move to Los Angeles from another city and really didn't know if it was the right decision, was really scared, was really second guessing it, but really wanted to. And I just said, you know what? Nothing's permanent. Yes, moving is expensive, and of course there are risks, but at the end of the day, when you really back up and look at your whole entire life, if you decide in a week that you don't want to live there, don't live there. At the end of the day, nothing is permanent, and that's why I think it's awesome to take those risks too, because that's something I had to learn early in my life too, was just do it, because if you don't like it or you change your mind or you want to go back to the more stable, secure thing, you can. But if you don't try it, then you don't even know what could be waiting on the other side. And you don't know, you would be sitting there saying, well, what if I had done that? Exactly. And that's always my thing. God, I feel that this applies to me with relationships with guys, I swear. It's I'll always be but if I don't go for it, then I'll just be wondering what would have happened.
Exactly. No, that is a big point though. I never want to, I guess one of my big fears in life is that, 20, 30 years down the road, I'll look back and say, I wish I had gone for that opportunity. I wish I had done that thing. And then at that point, the opportunity will have already sort of passed me by.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And you also hear stories about people who do things later in life. They say they go back to college at the age of 40, or they decide to quit their job and start their own gig at the age of 50,
Or you're Morgan Freeman and you become famous at age 50 or whatever. I think you gain success.
And it's stories like that really inspire me, because you kind of have to sit back and say, well, I guess if they can do it,
Yeah, absolutely.
I can do something now when I'm 26.
That's I think something I need to remember every day too, is I put a lot of pressure on myself. I think Los Angeles doesn't help either, but to do things quickly. Everyone's like, go, go, go. Like, oh, it's too late. Like you're already behind. When really it's like, no, you actually have like your whole freaking life to do anything.
Yeah.
Like if you're 45, 50, 55 and you're in a job you've had for 20 years and you're like, you know what? I want to be a painter. Like go be a freaking painter. Okay. Like you can do anything in your life at any point. And that's definitely an important thing. So, okay, so transitioning into like end of college, you're going to graduate. It's already a scary, anxious time. I remember my anxiety was at its absolute peak around our graduating college time. And I think probably a lot of people can relate to that or have experienced that. So what was that like when, you know, we were about to graduate and you knew, all right, so I'm not going to go to law school anymore and I'm going to go look for a job. And what was that like at the very beginning? How did you find your job? But also I remember, I don't think you didn't start your job till like end of summer, right? After graduating?
Yeah, August.
So what went down for that?
It was an absolutely terrifying time in my life. I think I had at least one panic attack a week. Especially for me because at the time, I had a lot of things going on. So in addition to just graduating and worrying about, you know, okay, my student loans are going to start kicking in soon. I'm going to have to worry about paying those back. I also was sort of, I guess, technically homeless at the time because we had just the lease on the house that I had been living in college had just expired. And so I was looking for a new place to live, actually with you.
Yeah.
But the lease on your place had not expired yet, I guess. And so I was feeling a lot of pressure of like, okay, now I have to worry about finding an apartment and finding a job and my student loans and, you know, just worrying about all this
there's a lot
stuff
happening.
I was like couch surfing, staying at other friends' places.
And if you guys didn't know, we're both from out of state, so it's tough because you don't
technically not. Yeah,
you're
I'm from
out of
Northern
city.
California.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
out of
which
city.
is still pretty far though.
Yeah,
from
so it's
LA.
tough because we don't, you know, you don't necessarily want to like leave and because it's hard. You have to kind of be here to be like looking for housing, and so it really. I mean, luckily we had like a ton of friends, but I can imagine that was a very stressful time. And I remember I avoided that because my lease I had another month. So
exactly. Yeah, and then you know, kind of going back to family pressure a little bit too. I was getting pressure from, you know, both sides of my family saying like, hey, maybe the better choice is to move home for a little bit, stay with your parents, kind of work it out there. But God, I'll be damned if I have to go back and move in with my parents.
I know,
refuse.
Right? See, like it's
I
amazing.
love them, but I refuse.
Yeah, and it's incredible that that's even an opportunity for us. Like I think we both have supportive families in the sense that like if we needed to and hit rock bottom, we could absolutely, you know, lean on them. But I feel you. So I'm like so grateful for that. But I'm also I feel you where I'm like, oh my God, like the last thing on earth after everything my parents have done for me is like, I am not about like, it's a pride thing. I'm like, no, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to be successful on my own. Like, I don't want to put anything on them. So then when you finally got that job.
Yes. So I found the job actually on Craigslist, which guys, don't like knock looking for on Craigslist for a job because Craigslist actually has randomly a weird amount of job opportunities that aren't on the traditional job hunting sites like LinkedIn and Glassdoor and whatnot, because it's actually cheaper for companies to post their listings there.
That
so
makes sense.
if you're looking for a job, maybe give Craigslist a shot because you never know.
Honestly, that's good advice.
But yeah, so I saw this job opportunity on Craigslist and it was for working as a marketing manager for an education company. And I jumped at the opportunity for that because it kind of, you know, it ticked all my boxes. It paid pretty well. When I went in for the interview, I really, really liked my future boss who I'd be working with. She was great. All of the other employees who were there were super, super nice. The commute wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't crazy long, I guess, by LA standards. It was maybe 45 minutes to an hour, which anywhere else in the world would suck. But here it's kind of like, oh, that's life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started that job. And in the beginning, it was really great. I was learning a lot. I loved my coworkers. It was a very supportive and engaging environment and a place to work. And everyone was really, you know, trying to lift each other up, both professionally and personally. But things kind of started taking a turn for the worse about a year in. I guess just the owners of the company made some poor financial decisions and they made some poor leadership decisions, and the company just kind of slowly started to spiral out of control. And I know I complained a lot to you about that, of just like all the things that were happening at the time. And so and actually around that time too, about a year in, my boss left the company, and so I was really on my own. They didn't bring anybody new in.
Yeah, which is insane. You had like double the workload.
Yeah, exactly. So I was pretty much the only person actually doing marketing, which I guess anyone who has worked in marketing before knows that it's not a one-man job.
Yeah.
And so I was really struggling with, doing so much work all the time. I would, stay at the office until 9-10 p.m. and then still take work home with me, do work, at night and on the weekends. And I really was just working myself absolutely to the bone for this job. And it wasn't worth that. I don't think I guess some jobs may be worth working that hard for if you're, really passionate about it and you're trying to start, a new startup career or something like that. But this particular job just wasn't worth that for me.
And it sounded like they had some core structural issues where it was like they weren't adding someone to your team to kind of help take that pressure off. They were just, and that's when I think it's kind of a good sign of like, okay, is there growth for me? Also, do I like the way the company's handling things? Because of course, like the goal sometimes with jobs is to be able to have a longer term like relationship with the people, or like stay at least for, I think traditionally like our parents used to stay at jobs for like 15-20 years, or like they would have one job and like stick with it the whole time. It's not like that anymore. It's a lot more acceptable to have many different jobs. But I'm gonna get back to this because we're gonna take a really quick break, but then I want to get into kind of like when you knew that you needed to leave, and then did you leave then or did you wait, and what you think about that, whether you have any regrets, etc. But we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we're back. Hello. So back to you, Hayley. So, okay, this is so interesting to me. I love, by the way, guys, hearing about people in all different aspects of their careers in terms of like Hayley is not going the entrepreneurial route. I am. But we actually were talking about this earlier. Actually, let's side route for a second. Yeah. Side route? I don't know. Let's segue really quick into that actually, because we were basically just talking about how a lot of people, especially in Los Angeles, get kind of shamed for having traditional jobs, like for having a 9-to-5 corporate thing where you're trying to climb a ladder or you're trying to, move up in your position and work for someone else. You almost get backlash here.
And anything that's not in the entertainment realm, really. Because, like, if I did marketing for Warner Brothers, like, that's still more exciting to me because, not to me, well, what am I saying? That's more exciting to other people who live in LA just because you have that name tied to it. But yeah, you get shamed for it. Like you and I have been out at bars before, and people will ask, what do? You talk about like all the creative aspects of your career, and then they turn to me. They're like, oh, what do you do for a living? And when I say like, oh yeah, I do marketing for an education company, they will literally turn away. Or I've had people who say, oh, so you're the boring one in the group.
True story. It's so sad too, because like it's honestly so not true. I think like there are so many types of jobs that I'm so fascinated by. And I think this whole entrepreneurial wave, especially in LA, it's so big because on the one hand, like we are given opportunities now that weren't available before. We can be creative and upload content to the internet the way that, in a way that our parents couldn't. And that's so incredible and amazing and magical. I also think, people say millennials are so entitled, but it's like we have this opportunity, so why not take it? But on the flip side, I think that especially in Los Angeles, what you're saying, like people then forget that like, okay, it's still really impressive and cool and like awesome to have a traditional, even the fact that it's even called a traditional job, like, but also, okay, this is really just Los Angeles too. I think like when I go to San Francisco and go hang out with my friend Charlotte, who works at a tech corporation, and I think her job is so incredibly interesting. I love hearing about what she does every day. I think in another life, like I would love a job like that. Like if being an entrepreneur was not a thing, if doing my own thing was just like not allowed or whatever, I would totally go do that. And I think it's so fascinating. But so when I'm there and I'm like, oh, like I make YouTube videos, and people are like, what? what do you mean you make YouTube videos? Like, do you get paid for that? And like I go into this whole explanation. People like literally think it's weird or they don't understand.
And then that can even be shamed too, because there's such a stigma in other places for the entertainment industry where people are like, oh, that's not a real job, or you like that doesn't pay the bills. There's no way.
Weren't you just in Eastern Washington and everyone was like, wait, why does everyone do like creative things in LA?
Yeah, I was just in Eastern Washington for a wedding, and everyone was asking me. I live with 2 creators, and so they were asking me about my roommates and about you because they know you, and saying like, oh, well, just just kind of piling on top of the stigma with working in entertainment, where they say like, oh, that's not a real job. Those lazy millennials, entitled, they're just making videos.
It's so crazy.
Not actually contributing.
Oh my gosh. It honestly blows my mind that it can go both ways, where like people can like shit on the person with the normal 9 to 5 and people can shit on the person doing the entertainment or doing like the entrepreneurial thing, because what people don't see, and it's actually really hard to explain my job to people, even in LA, because what they don't see is like, I'm literally every part of the job. It's like working at a company, but you're everyone. So it's like, they don't always see like, we work really, really hard. We work many hours. We're just doing something we want to do that we like doing that's creative. But it's like insane when people are like, oh, like people literally say I have a fake job. They like expect me to be able to answer calls or take meetings like at any time during the day. Like, oh, like, can you go do this? Let's go shopping. And I'm like, dude, I still work. I have more flexibility because I choose it, but like, I still work. So it's super interesting. And I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's really important to understand for you guys listening that it doesn't matter which path you want to take. If you're like, you know what, I want to go work at Apple and I want to go, work my way up and do the corporate thing, like do that. That's absolutely amazing. Do that. You do not have to feel the pressure the other way to like go be an entrepreneur or go start your own thing. Like you should never feel shamed for not having a side hustle. We talk a lot about side hustles and being an entrepreneur here because that's what I'm doing. And I do want to empower people to realize that they can do that if they want to do that. But I also just want to empower people to know that they can do whatever they want to do. And if they want to go be the freaking like CMO of Google, you do that. Like you go fight for that and you make that happen. And like, so that's the whole point here is just whichever path you take, the whole theme of this episode is kind of like, do what you got to do what you want to do. Don't let anyone else tell you what you should or shouldn't do, what is or isn't okay. Like if you're going to be successful or not, don't listen to that. Do what you want to do.
Yeah. And that's such an important lesson. And it's so much easier said than done.
100%.
Especially if you're like me and you have anxieties and fears. It's so easy to just stay kind of where you're at and stay comfortable and stay sort of fearful of taking the next step and moving forward. But if in the back of your mind, if you're sitting there and thinking like, okay, well, what are my deepest career dreams and how do I get there? If you're like stuck not in a position that will move you forward, it's important to just remind yourself that you got to do you. You got to do what's best for your goals.
And on the flip side of that, I also want to emphasize, if you don't know, like if you're younger or even if you're not younger, but if you're like, you know what, I don't even know, like what is my passion? Like what do I really want to do? That's also A-okay. But I think it's interesting to have that conversation with yourself and decide, like, do you know what you like? Do you not? Because if you're someone that doesn't know, like where you want to go, because we're sitting here being like, do what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, maybe that's the first step, is just really starting to think about that and experiencing different types of jobs or different types of experiences or side hustles or anything. Because I know for me, for example, did I think I'd be sitting here doing a podcast that's kind of a self-help coaching businessy? No, never. Like I went to school for screenwriting. I'm super creative. I'm into storytelling and like filming and being on camera. I never thought I'd be doing this. But also I had like so many different jobs and internships, that mostly ones that I didn't like, a lot that I liked, but that helped shape, me knowing what I wanted to do or didn't want to do. So it's okay if you don't know, but go do things. Just go try different things. If you're like, I want to be a chef, go be a freaking chef. And then if the next day you're like, actually, JK, I want to be a professional golfer, like, great. I don't know why I chose those. Those were so random.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, the whole point is just, it's all a journey, and don't be afraid to take the risks. And I think you just did take the risk by
I was going to say, this is actually a perfect segue here into the conclusion of my journey, or I guess not the conclusion, but the conclusion of this particular story of how I quit my job. So we had just talked about how companies kind of spiraling out of control. They're, putting all this work on me. They're not really valuing me as an employee because they're not hiring additional people to help me out with that workload. And so at this point, we're maybe a year and a half to not quite 2 years into me working there. And this is when I really started telling people like, oh, I'm going to quit my job. I need to quit my job. And then I continued to say that for the next 2.5 years. And so just over and over again, like, oh, I hate my job. I need to quit my job. I need to quit my job, but not actually taking any action to do it. And Adrienne knows this better than anyone because she lived with me at the time and would just hear it every single day, like, oh, I'm quitting my job. And you're like, yeah, like when?
I
when
mean,
is that
I supported
happening?
you no matter what. I was like, great, quit. Oh, you don't want to quit? Great. Okay.
And the reason I didn't quit when I did was I was really it was a couple of reasons. One, I was really hoping that I would be able to find a new job before I actually gave my notice. Yeah, because we all want that financial stability.
Right.
And, I'm still hearing those voices of my family in the back of my head saying like, oh, well, you don't want to dig yourself into a financial pit. You don't want to get too much in debt. And so I was really hoping that I would be able to find something before I left.
Right.
Problem with that is that if you're working a job that requires you to take work home with you, or maybe if you just have other responsibilities, if you have kids or you want to be normal and have a social life, it's really hard to find the time to actually apply to jobs and work on your cover letter and go to networking events. And so I just didn't have time to even apply to things.
Especially now that also you're not an entry-level employee, so you actually have more things that you're looking for that you need. So there are more standards for you too. You're not just kind of throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. You're actually I need this pay and I need this type of role. Yeah, so it's a full-time job in itself searching for a job. So I totally understand that. It's scary to quit before having that.
Yeah, so that was number one. That was a big I guess sticking point of me that kind of, or just I guess something that held me back with that. And then another one is just I guess general fear, and that's something that I think a lot of people who are considering leaving their job but who haven't yet is something that they've experienced is fear of leaving. Well, what if I interview and nobody likes me? What if I, if I'm applying to jobs and I can't get one? What if I leave and then I look back and the company starts to do really well and suddenly I think, shit, I wish I had stuck around and taken that and stayed with that opportunity. There's so many fears that will hold us back from actually taking that
action.
leap.
Totally.
And those definitely overcame me and were a big a big reason why I wasn't moving as quickly as I could have with actually taking the jump, quitting the job, and, getting out of there.
So what hit you? Because I remember a couple of days ago or maybe last week, you were like, I think I'm going to put my 2 weeks in. And I was like, oh my God, that's huge. I haven't actually heard you say that. And then you were like, I literally did it. And I was like, oh my God, what hit you? What was your breaking point? Or I mean, I don't know if there was one breaking point or not. And you were saying earlier that a lot of people assume when you quit that there's one big thing that happened or some blow up or some fight or someone treated you badly. But sometimes it's not that.
Yeah. So I actually love that you asked that question because that is the one question that I get from every single person that I have told, oh, I just put my 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
Coworkers, family, friends, every single person, the first thing that they ask me is always, what happened to make you quit? Really implying, like you said, that it was one incident. And I think it's really important for people to understand that it doesn't necessarily have to be one single action that triggers a career decision like that. So in my case, it had really been building up over time. And I was in Eastern Washington over the weekend. I was at this wedding and I was just kind of sitting sun tanning outside, taking some time to de-stress and get off social media for a minute and kind of reflect and contemplate. And I just kind of sat there and thought, you know what, this is it. I'm done waiting. I've been complaining about this for a really long time.
It just kind of hit you.
It just hit me now it's time to take that leap. And it wasn't one particular thing.
Right.
I didn't have some big blowout with my boss. I didn't. I mean, that has happened in the past, but that didn't cause this decision.
Right.
There wasn't some big, a work fire essentially that happened that caused me to want to leave. It really was just a lot of feelings compounding and me just finally realizing, okay, it's time to take a deep breath and just let it all go and take that jump. And it feels amazing.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so what do you feel now?
It feels
just relief?
A lot of relief. Still a lot of anxiety and fear,
Totally.
though. That's all still there because I don't have a job lined up at the moment. And so now it's, the goal, or I guess the plan is going to be, after my last day of work, my full-time job is essentially going to be to find a job. So I'll be, blocking off 9 to 10 hours a day to just get those applications out, go to networking events, and do all that stuff so I can hopefully find a job as quickly as possible. So it's a lot of relief and then anxiety at the same time, definitely.
And what's going to be what's your strategy for finding a job, just in case anyone is kind of wondering, like, how do I even like find the right job? Like, what's going to be your tactic besides like obviously applying to companies and like looking online and going to networking things? Like, is there anything else?
Well, so step one is definitely adjusting my resume and making a lot of notes on a lot of like data specific notes on what I've done at my current job.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think anyone who's looking to leave their career should definitely make sure that before you actually leave, kind of dig into the data at work a little bit, take notes while you can and while you have all your work stuff in front of you.
Access to all of it.
Yeah. Take notes on, how many projects have I led? How many clients have I taken on? How many sales have I brought in? Like whatever it is that you do while you have that information in front of you, take advantage of it, make notes, kind of save it to your personal documents so you have it, and then you can put that information
Super important.
in your resumes, because that's something that a lot of people looking at resumes are going to be looking for.
Actual achievements, like tangible. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Exactly. So that's going to be a big one. I'm also, asking my current boss and old bosses for letters of recommendation, which they said that they were happy to give me. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yay, awesome.
But yeah, so sourcing letters of recommendation, updating your resume, those are all really important. And then taking a minute to reflect and figure out exactly what industry you want to be in, because industry is super, super important. It's not just, I want to do a job in marketing. It's, I want to be involved in this specific industry, because some industries are harder to break into than others.
And like you want to wake up every day and not be like, crap, I have to go make a flyer about like shoes if I don't like shoes. Okay, that was a weird example, but no, it goes with anything. Yeah, exactly. Like you could do marketing for a movie studio, or you could do marketing for an educational company, or you could do marketing for literally a snack brand. Like you could do it for anything, but what you're marketing is important, because you want to be like interested enough in it to like care.
Yeah, exactly. And an industry that one person is super passionate about probably isn't going to be something that I'm super passionate about, and vice versa. And so it's important to like realize that for yourself and think, if you have a passion that's really weird, if you're really passionate about, like we have a friend who works in the food service industry. He works for a pistachio company right now, and he is super passionate about food. And so if like, I'm personally not passionate about food, but if that's what
I'm passionate about eating food.
Yeah, I mean, I love to eat food, obviously, but like I wouldn't want to work in it every single day.
Same.
But if that's what you're really passionate about, don't sit there and say, oh, well, none of my friends are working in this industry.
Yeah.
And that must mean that it's not good.
Totally.
That's not the case.
Totally.
So that reflection is really important, and realizing like this is what or at least this is the industry I think I want to be in. Because you mentioned it earlier, like it's okay if you don't know 100% what you want to do, but at least have sort of a general idea of what you're passionate about and go from there.
Well, I'm so excited for you. I'm like, I think it's going to be like, of course it's scary, but you know what I think is going to be so awesome too is like, you're going to be just fine. And I think at your core, and I think some people don't, but like you will be okay, but it's scary. Think like you don't know what's going to happen. Like you don't know how you're going to find a job, when, what kind of job, like all those unknowns are what are scary.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is you're going to be okay. The second cool thing is that I think that, we don't know yet, but I'm going to put this out in the universe right now. I think that this whole experience will also make you be more able and willing to take that kind of risk in the future. Like if you go to another job and you don't like it after a year or whatever, like I feel like you're going to be a lot more like picky and like, you know what? I'm not going to like do what I did before. It's kind of like, God, again, bringing it back to my relationships. I don't know why your job hunt is very similar to my boy life, but I dated a guy in college who I did kind of what you did at your job with. I was like, we need to break up. We need to break up for literally ever. I was saying this, like Hayley knows because we've been besties this whole time. This was literally the same situation, but with a boy. Yeah. And I was like, we need to end this. We need to do it. And then I finally did it. And it was like so hard and I was so sad and it was stressful and whatever. But then once I got over it, now it's like, oh my God, the second someone even displays like a red flag the way that there was before, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that again. Because you stress yourself out so much. You are so exhausted. I'm sure that's how you feel.
Yeah, definitely. And that's such a good point too, that all of these lessons that I've learned with this job, like they are so applicable to anything else in life that requires you to take that leap. So it's not just like, oh, this podcast is only for people who want to quit their job today.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to tune out. Like, this is literally for anyone who needs to make a really hard decision, whether it's, relationship related. Like you said, if you know, like, oh, I need to break up, but you just haven't done it yet. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe there's a person you really want to pursue and you're like, oh, I'm too nervous to do that. It's all about taking a leap and taking a
leap,
fighting that fear to take a little bit of a leap of faith in yourself and just say, you know what, I'm going to do it. And so the day that I actually put in my 2 weeks notice and I officially told my boss like that I'm quitting, this is it. So it was on a Tuesday and I had a meeting with him to talk about other things. And I knew like I needed to tell him at the start of this meeting. And even like, the meeting time is coming up and I work remote. So I'm like sitting in my room and I'm starting to get anxious and like heart rate's going up and I'm like voice in the back of my head is like, okay, you know what, maybe you shouldn't do it. Like maybe very tempted to just back out at the last minute because it's so easy when you're sitting in that position to just be like, okay, you know what, maybe I'll do it another day. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And so I sat there literally 10 minutes before my meeting at my desk and I visualized just like bungee jumping, which sounds really, or what was, it was zip lining because I've done zip lining before. I haven't done bungee jumping, but if you've ever done any sort of like jumping activity, that sounds really weird, but if you've ever done zip lining or bungee jumping or what's it called, like parachuting out of an airplane, or at least if you've seen anything like that, basically it really just takes like 2 seconds of you doing something really brave and then it's an exhilarating feeling after that. And when I was a kid, I did zip lining and like same sort of feeling where you are very terrified to do something and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you finally like just let everything go and you do it and it feels amazing. And so I literally visualized that experience and said, you know what, like making the leap away from this job is going to be the same thing. I just need to do it. And so sure enough, the meeting time came up, like turned on the video chat, like I just did it. That was like the first thing I said to him in the conversation. And I just think like
I'm so proud. Like, honestly, that's so inspiring because I know how hard that was for you. And that is so cool, like, that you did that. And and that moment was yours. Like, it was only you. Like, no one can tell you anything. That was you in your own head having to be like, Hayley, just do it. And you did it. And that is so amazing. And what you said earlier, I just want to say, it sounds like, God, you're sounding like me, which is amazing. And also, if you guys listen to this podcast, if you've listened to other episodes, you'll know that I say the laws of success are universal. That is the whole point of all of this. So thank you for pointing that out because it's so true. And like that is so incredible. And I just think a lot of people can really learn from this story and, like you said, like apply this to other things in life. And I love you coming on talking about this because you were scared and you aren't naturally like, yeah, let's go take these risks, which a lot of people aren't. Like most people I think aren't like that. Like, and it's so important to me to, well, be friends with, but also like have a wide variety of people on this show because I think a lot of the people who have success stories or whatever are like, yeah, no, it was like I did this and whatever. And it's like, well, but that's not the reality of always. Like I've gotten anxious as crap to do things. I question myself every single day. It's like so natural.
It's really hard. And during the period where I was sitting there saying like, oh, I'm going to quit my job. And then I didn't actually do it. Like I have a lot of very confident friends who would tell me like, well, why don't you just do it? Like, I don't understand, you know, just you know, and I would sit there and be like, oh, well, you know, it's easier said than done.
Totally.
You don't understand. And it is. It's 100% easier said than done. And I think for me personally, like the whole visualization thing of just, you know, taking a jump really helped me actually do that. And just realizing that like I'm worth more than what I was putting up with.
Totally. I think it
was all really helpful. But
that's just great.
Taking that
I'm like so happy for you and I'm excited to we'll have to do a follow-up post interview. We'll have to do like a 6-month follow-up and like, hopefully, okay, so now what happened?
Hopefully I have something exciting to tell you 6 months from now. Well,
I mean, either way you
Hayley's homeless at this point.
Hayley is currently in a cardboard box on my corner.
Forget everything she said. We're gonna erase that podcast from the lineup.
Oh my God, never.
No, I'm gonna be listening to a lot of those manifestation episodes that you've had and that you're going to be making in the future.
Absolutely. Let's work on manifesting together.
Manifest me a job. It's going to be great.
Let's manifest you a job. Let's manifest some things this month.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we'll check in 6 months or whenever and give you a little update.
Heck yeah, we will. I'm so down for that. Well, you guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Hayley, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and being willing to talk about it. You're in a very fresh time right now, and that's exactly why I wanted you here. Yeah. I think it's perfect timing to be able to talk about this kind of thing, and people can relate to that a lot. So, you guys, if you want to go follow Hayley, I asked her in the car, do you want me to plug anything? And she's like, I mean, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, my Instagram. So if you want to follow Hayley and stalk her and comment all these nice things, you're going to get a job, don't worry. Then you can follow her on Instagram at Hayley, Hayleys, Paul, Paul. And I will put that in the show notes as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to give me some ratings and reviews on iTunes. I really appreciate those. They help so much. So please share this with a friend who could use this. Go binge all the episodes. Go comment on Instagram or message me. I want to talk about what takeaways you had. If you have any ideas for the podcast, DM me on Instagram. You can email me. All the links to everything will be in the show notes. And without anything else to say, you guys, thank you for being you. And go kick butt today and whatever it is that you're doing. I will catch you on the next episode. Bye! That was such a high-pitched bye! But bye. For real, bye.